I thought we were done with Epstein. I thought this whole situation was taken care of. Well, now, it's actually going to get a lot more interesting before it gets boring. And let me explain to you why. Essentially, what you have is you've got the situation with a 218 vote. You have the royal fallout, and you have the Wall Street banks in a crosshair. The renewed fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, from Congress fighting for the release of classified files to new lawsuits against major banks, and shocking developments inside the British royal family. This saga is far from over. One more signature could trigger the release of every Epstein-related file the Justice Department still holds. The discharge petition, that is what it's called. Currently at 217 signatures. It needs one more to reach 218. This would force Speaker Mike Johnson to bring the resolution to the floor, no matter how hard he tries to stall it. Although he says he's not stalling it. He's basically saying that, no, that's not what he's trying to do. Well, we shall see. We shall see exactly what's happening. We look at which representative have signed, who's holding out, and our new member, Adelita Gravaja, vote could flip the balance. She is the last holding vote. Then, of course, in segment number 2, let's talk about the Wall Street in the crosshair. Right? The Epstein fallout has landed squarely on Wall Street. And we know that lots of money went back and forth between Epstein and his bankers, and yet no one saw anything. New lawsuits target Bank of America and BNY Mellon for allegedly turning a blind eye to suspicious transactions. Over 300 million linked to Epstein-controlled accounts. Congress is now eyeing subpoenas, with lawmakers demanding that bank executives testify before both the House and the Senate about how these funds were moved and why red flags were ignored. Segment number 3, the royal family fallout. Across the Atlantic, the British monarchy faces fresh turmoil. Prince Andrew has relinquished his Duke of York title following revelation he allegedly sought to dig up personal information on accuser Virginia Groff. What's really happening is, because you got to wonder, why? I thought we were done once he killed himself in prison, right? I thought we were done. Well, it would appear not. It would appear that now we have even more people embroiled in this situation. And with direct impact, it's actually things are actually happening. Things are actually happening to these people, including Prince Andrew again. So fresh turmoil. Prince Andrew has relinquished the Duke of York title following revelations he allegedly sought to dig up personal information on his accuser, Virginia Groff. Leaked email from 2011 shows communication with Epstein even after public exposure, contradicting his previous claims. Now, the UK MP are demanding full transparency from the royal family as Groff's posthumous memoirs promises new revelations. They want to know what's in it. And then number four, the heart of the matter remains transparency. Despite DOJ claims that no client list exists, public and political pressure continues to mount. Over 30,000 pages of files have been released so far. But investigators, survivors, and journalists insist the most sensitive names remain hidden. We'll analyze what these files reveal, what's still missing, and what could happen if Congress reaches a critical 218 vote, and they will reach this vote once the government opens up again. So if the petition succeeds, it could blow open decades of hidden relationship between finance, politics, and global elites. So everything is gonna be opened up. The Epstein story has always been about more than one man. It's about accountability at the highest level of power. So, let's see what's going on, and let's try to understand what the ultimate implications are going to be. So first of all, again, the book hasn't come out yet, but they know what's in it. And the prince, Andrew, relinquishes major royal titles. The former Duke of York has announced he will no longer use his Duke of York title and other honors after discussion with King Charles III. Well, I don't know if there was a discussion, but he basically told them enough is enough. This comes amid renewed scrutiny of his links to Epstein, an accusation from the late accuser. So there was a late accusation, okay, so we kind of know what she said, but now it would appear, number two, that there's new allegations suggest that Prince Andrew asked a police protection officer to dig up personal info about Virginia Groff, including a U.S. Social Security number in 2011. Additionally, MPs in the UK are now calling for deeper parliamentary scrutiny on what the royal family knew. Ooh, this is getting more dangerous. Now they want to know, King Charles, did you know what your brother was doing? Did you have any inclination? I mean, imagine the kind of discussion that we're talking about here. So the memoir of Virginia Groff and document release, Groff post-humorous memoir is set to be released soon. And it reportedly contains further explosive allegations, including that a prominent political figure. At the same time, large batches of documents connected to Epstein Network are expected to drop. They're going to want to know, okay, where did the money go? You mean there's no trace whatsoever? There's nothing. That is just not possible. So the fallout is not just about individuals, right? It's about the monarchy's image is under pressure, and there are growing calls for systemic reform. And also in the U.S., survivors of Epstein trafficking network are increasingly vocal, demanding full release of the so-called Epstein files. So this matters a lot more and more. And of course, we're getting closer and closer to the midterm elections next year. So the Republicans have to be very careful because they're riding high right now, but you got to make sure that this thing doesn't derail you. There's some rumors within the MAGA movement that things are not as happy as you think it is. Power and accountability. Epstein's network has long been shrouded in mystery. Right? These recent developments increase scrutiny on the interaction of wealth, power, and institutional legitimacy. This is where it matters. The monarchy, law enforcement, and political system are all facing credibility questions due to how this saga has been handled. They're going to ask the king, you didn't know what your brother was doing? They're going to ask the banks. They're going to say to the banks, you didn't know what was that money for? You had no idea. You were not invited to any parties. It was just a bunch of numbers. And we have proven and seen and shown that he got paid lots of money for doing lots of interesting things that really weren't worth that much. The head of Apollo gave him $150 million to manage his business. The head of the Limited gave him power of attorney over all his affairs. Not anymore, but and someone called him the biggest blackmailer in history. Hutnik, he used to live next door to him. So survivor justice, the justice dimension is still evolving. Release of document and testimony could lead to more accountability. through prosecution or implicated individuals. We may not have a more bunch of trials, but we could have a bunch of firing. We could have a bunch of people losing their crown, as is already happening. We don't forget the English, the ambassador of England lost his job because of that, some email that came out. So, April 2025. Let's recap. So April 2025, there's a death by suicide of Virginia Groff, a prominent accuser of the Epstein royal network saga. Her death reignited discussion about how survivors are treated and what else remains hidden. That was in April. In July, the U.S. Department and the FBI released a memo that they found no credible evidence. Now that you look at this, you're saying, wow, well, if there's no credible evidence, why come these people are losing jobs and crowns? That Epstein maintained a client list of powerful individuals. Well, maybe he doesn't have a list, but there's a bunch of email. This announcement surprised many who believe a larger network of high-profile figures are still implicated. There was a lot of money being involved. It also triggered political backlash and disagreement, especially among those pushing for full transparency. Simultaneously, metadata and external analysis challenged the rawness of the prison footage. Well, let's not get into that. Okay, so let's assume killed himself. Around this time, resurfaced books, reporting also highlight the fallout of the MAGA Republican circle. The Epstein file issue created tension between populist base and conservative leadership. Basically, the House Speaker is saying, but we have asked for information to be released. How much more do you want us to do? Right? That's a lot. I don't think we could release any more information, can we? So, let's move on, right? Let's not do this anymore. Well, this is not really what is going on here, right? What's going on is around this time, in August now, we're in August, it was reported that the House Oversight Committee, managed by the Republican, basically would begin receiving documents from the Epstein investigation. It was a bipartisan, obviously. And they say, okay, well, let's release under subpoena of the Department of Justice. You want information, we are going to give it to you. So you have the information. These records were expected to include Epstein files, financial. No, the files is not a bunch of list of names and people. You could also transactions. The money went back and forth. Who got paid and for what? The move marked a shift after the DOJ in July suggested little more to reveal. So there was nothing, but yet they released information. October, of course, key development involving Prince Andrew of the UK. He announced he would relinquish his title of Duke of York. So people are going to wonder, well, if there's nothing there, right? There's no there. Why is he leaving? What's in this book? And let me tell you, from what I hear, there's a lot of information in this book. Names are being named. Let's see. Investigation in the UK, including the Metropolitan Police, looked into whether Andrew asked a protection officer. He asked his details, say, can you find out more about her? And this guy did not say anything, didn't report to anyone at all. So no one knew anything in the royal chambers. Leaked email suggested ongoing contact between Andrew and Epstein in early 2011. Now remember, Epstein got quote-unquote indicted in 2008, where he did kind of a one-year thing, and then it was done, including shortly after a photo of Andrew with Groff emerged, contradicting previous assertion that Andrew made about the time of their ties. We've seen the movie, we've seen the video, we've seen all this, but now it appeared that there was more to the story. And of course, financial sector fallout. On October 15th, a lawsuit was filed. This is now. Right, it was filed against major banks, Bank of America and BNY. In the past, JP Morgan filed, lost, and paid. Well, they didn't agree to any wrongdoing. They just paid a bunch of money. I think $220 million to the victims, making it look like, okay, so let's give them some money, feel bad for them. alleging they knowingly facilitated Epstein's sex trafficking network by providing financial services. This is now. This is happening now. So this timeline matters because it's about transparency versus secrecy, right? The DOJ memo in July alleging little new evidence is basically conflicting with public expectation and survivor demands for full disclosure. There's institutional accountability, the involvement of banks and financial institutions. Don't these people have some sort of a compliance department? We used to have one, I remember. Political and royal implication. Figures like Prince Andrew face reputational and legal consequences. The story continues to ripple into large institutions, monarchies, government, financial markets. In fact, I would say this is actually worse because no one is going to trial, but a bunch of institutions are being put on trial. Right? You can't put the monarchy to jail. You can't put JP Morgan to jail. But you could certainly damage their reputation. And that's what's happening right now. And that is much more difficult. I bet you, I didn't see it coming. A lot of people did not see that coming. Right? You thought that this was all about let's see the list and let's get to the guilty party. Wow. While you get to those, because don't forget, just because you're named somewhere doesn't mean anything. But you could prove that these people knew about it, that these institutions were aware, or you're going to have to bring them out and let's talk about it. Let them lie under oath. Media and public sentiment, despite official statement of no client list, a large portion of the public remains skeptical. Of course, there's no way this could just be nothing. So the most important one after the book, because that's what's causing this, the book coming out, right? The discharge petition. That is what you need to look for. The discharge petition is being used. This is a mechanism of the House, which once a certain number of members, around 218, and we've got 218, sign, it forces a bill or resolution out of committee and onto the floor for vote. Even if Speaker Johnson says, we already released 30,000 pages, we don't want to release anymore, you could force a vote. The petition in question is aimed at bringing to the floor a resolution sponsored by Thomas Massie, Republican, not well liked of President Trump, that would demand the immediate release of all federal documents relating to Epstein's investigations. So as of September 2025, the petition reportedly has 217 signatures. They technically have 218, right? But Massie has claimed that with a newly elected member from Arizona pledging to sign, but she hasn't been signed in yet because the government is closed. The 218 threshold will be reached soon. Let me tell you, when that thing gets released, then you have to show everything. We're not talking about the list. We're talking about showing all the transactions, all the banks. But they know what they've done, right? So if you know what you've done, you got to run for cover right now. You've got to run for cover. The implication, once it is 218, any member who signed can force the House Speaker to schedule a floor vote. And then, once they have a vote on the floor, you go out and say, I'm not voting for it. They're going to say, why not? And don't forget, the president still has to sign it. Why are you not signing? Because they know once it's out there, they got to go along with it. If you want to stop it, now is the time to do it. But there's no way to stop this. There's no way to stop this. It's going to come out. So the House leadership, particularly Speaker Mike Johnson, has been resisting moving the measure forward. Not that he did anything, he's got something to hide, but what he's saying is that we release enough information, this is really becoming too much. Right? Since the House in recess in early 2015 to avoid votes related to Epstein file. Some Republicans are reluctant to sign or vote the petition, citing concern about process. Right? That's what they say. It is discharge petition bypassing committee steps or other legislative priorities. It also argued that some relevant records have been already released by the House Oversight Committee. So what's really going on here? Obviously, if you don't like the Republicans, you're going to say they have something to hide, right? But even if Republicans themselves, what is it? Now, you have to understand that not many of them will move away from the administration, right? He's in charge. Massey, he doesn't like Massey, but at the end of the day, they're gonna have to move, and they're gonna have to go along to get along, because that could play against them in the midterm elections next year. This 218 matters because the House has 435 voting members. So if 218, a majority plus one, the threshold needed for many procedural moves, including discharge petitions. Achieving 218 means a petition cannot be easily sidestepped, and the House is forced to address a measure. You have to address it, right? You have to basically say, we have to vote. Now, doesn't mean that everything gets released automatically. It says that you have to release this thing now, right? You need to release it now. Because if you don't, that's going to be a problem. So what happens next, right? What happens next? Well, what's next and what to watch is basically what you're going to have to do. It's fairly simple. You have to watch for the final signature to hit. Once the 218 is reached, a member who signed demand the floor vote. The response from leadership, they may still attempt procedural moves, to delay and to stop it from happening. But how much more? The content of the vote, even if it gets to the floor, the resolution itself may only be non-binding. It demands release, but it doesn't guarantee, unless structured as a law with enforcement language. Now, they could still play games, but by that time, you have to be very careful what kind of game you're playing. Because if you look like you don't want the information to be released, and the Democrats will certainly push for it to say, aha, they don't want it to be released. The interplay with existing investigation and subpoena efforts, there are already subpoenas for file. They say, but we're already asking for all this. Fine, let's get even more information. So the United States House Committee of the Judiciary, another committee, have begun investigating, and that's another one. They've been investigating major banks' handling of Epstein-linked accounts. Right? For example, Republican Jamie Raskin, ranking member of the Judicial Committee, issued a statement after the new lawsuit were filed and flagged that more than $1.5 billion in suspicious transactions linked to Epstein's are under scrutiny. Now, you have to realize one thing, is that Apnick, right, the Commerce Commerce Secretary, used to live next to Epstein. And he visited Epstein once, and he said, wow, this guy is a major shadowy figure. He's a blackmailer. That's what it feels like to me. And he left right away. Okay, he said it not too long ago. So the United States Senate Committee on Finance, and that's going to be a problem, has publicly called for the banks like a Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, Deutsche Bank to be subpoenaed for internal records regarding Epstein-related transactions. Now, they have to be very careful. If they say, I don't have to show you anything, why? Do you have something to hide? Do you want to bank at JP Morgan knowing what they've done? Bank of New York? While formal subpoena or scheduled testimonies aren't being widely reported as of now, for the two newly sued banks, B of A and BNY, the Senate and House investigations strongly suggest the banks will be asked to testify or submit senior executive for questioning. Do you want to be that guy or that woman that's going to go in front of Congress, right, who's out for blood? That's going to be a lot of damage. So who's being sued now? Well, BNY and Bank of America. And that's going to be a lot of damage, folks. So we have to follow this one very, very carefully. And the reason you need to do that is because a lot of these people were hoping that it would go away. A lot of these institutions, a lot of these large, including, the monarchy, because they could ask anyone over there. Well, he asked his details to go out and actually ask for information. Was this recorded anywhere? Because it's in the book. Oh, she's lying? But she committed suicide earlier this year. So that's a tough one to actually come against and say, you know what, we don't believe what's happening. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget, if you want, you could also become a member. And my member is basically what you get. I know this may sound a bit gossipy, but really what we're looking for, we're trying to understand what's happening and the implication. Because if this impacts the Republican in a very bad way, or if this situation impacts the administration in a very bad way, then they're going to have a tough time to get things done. And obviously, this will impact the economy even more. This will impact the stock market, because right now the administration, quite frankly, they're waiting for the Supreme Court to tell them whether or not those tariffs are legal or not. That money going to the Treasury is very important right now. So therefore, we need to understand and follow. And this is what this channel is about. What this channel does, it goes out and it looks for anything that could go wrong. I did something on China and the decoupling, and we're going to do something in the stock market. You need to understand what's happening, because if you don't understand what's happening, then you're going to be stuck, right? How is the economy doing? Will the tariffs keep on going? You need to understand the risk. When you're crossing the street, you're looking left and you're looking right? Before you cross the street. You just don't say, I want to cross the street. That's my main goal. No, your main goal is not to get run over. Right? Your main goal right now is you want to understand whether or not, what are the implications with the midterm with this thing. And this thing is getting, and of course, as the Democrats will point out, is that, hey, we always wanted to release everything. The Republicans are putting, roadblocks. I wonder why. And if any of them gets caught in, then this could change a lot of things. This could be, don't forget that the Democrats right now are looking for something to hang their hats on. Right now, they hang their hats on the healthcare by basically saying that, we will do anything for healthcare. We'll shut the government down for healthcare. Right? So, well, you got to stand on something. Now, if this thing becomes even more important, maybe they will allow that. Maybe this is what I think could happen next. Maybe the Democrats will say, you know what? Let's release it, because she will vote. That Democrat that just got elected, the 218th vote. Maybe what she will do is she will enable the vote, and then everything is going to come out, and then we could go to town on this, right? Because that's what could happen if she released all that information, not herself, but and if it goes to the floor and the Republicans say, no, we don't want to release information, they're going to say, why don't you want to release that information? It's all about perception. Remember, nobody's going to trial here, right? No one is going to go to jail. Bill Clinton submitted it's already gone and by you. Did you hear anything? It was all behind closed doors. No one is going to go to jail over this. But the ambassador to the UK lost his job over this. The Duke Windsor lost his title, right, because of this. 2 banks are being sued because of this. And we haven't seen the book. And we have not seen the floor vote. And when that comes out, that is going to be a lot of damage. So subscribe to this channel. Understand what's happening. Learn. Analyze. And then make up your own mind. Don't listen too much to the news, and because I feel that the news is very biased. They don't tell you really what's going on. They tell you what they think is important, which means tends to be biased one way or the other. We shall see what happens next. My bet, My guess is this shutdown is going to end pretty soon now. Now that they know they have 218 votes, now that they know who did what to whom when, they're going to want to see these people haul into Wall Street and haul, of course, in front of Congress. That is what they are waiting for, I believe. And when that happens, you're going to heads are going to roll. And that has happened in the past, as I reported. People have lost election because of what goes on into Congress. No, again, no one is going to go to jail, right? Because that would take too long and there's no interest in it right now. Plus, you have to prove everything. But the point is, the fact that Prince Andrew decided to give up. Why? He already gave up everything else. What could possibly force him to do it? They might want even to question the monarchy themselves. You mean you had no idea? I mean, his mother paid, I think, $27 or $23 million. So let's keep in mind, let's think about what's happening, and let's pay attention, because this situation is not over soon. It's not going to be over soon. This is going to go for a while.